The 2008 financial crisis froze Iceland's economy for years, and it led to court cases and jail sentences for several of the country's bankers. But now those same executives say they were made scapegoats, and they are taking their case to the European Court of Human Rights. Mobin Nasir explains.
Billions of dollars lost, tens of thousands left unable to afford housing, and entire industries affected. The 2008 global financial crisis left many losers. Bankers were blamed for creating the crisis. Although most of them got off scot-free, in Iceland many were tried and jailed. But now the former president of Kaupthing Bank, who spent more than a year in jail, says he was a scapegoat and he wants payback.
We believe that some of the judges were impartial, both partly because they had lost a lot of money during the economic crisis. The Supreme Court judges, some of them were investing in banking shares that they lost money on. Some of the judges had family relations which made them not eligible for sitting at the court in our cases.
Prosecution against Iceland's financial industry was ramped up at the end of 2008 after massive protests. That led to fines and jail terms for 24 heads of banks and other financial institutions. But many of the charges against them are related to practices that are questionable but were not illegal in the country at the time.
I'm not detesting at all that in some cases partly we issued loans against our own stock. This was not illegal at the time. It might be so that good banking practice today, 10 years later, would not accept this. But at that time, it was more common than you think. So basically, it has taken now like 9 years out of my life.
The government that was once eager to take bankers to task has also taken a more conciliatory tone.
I'm not a very vindictive person. I think people can improve. They should be allowed to be in business as long as they stay within the law.
The European Court of Human Rights has received 9 appeals from Icelandic bankers so far. Einarsson's case will be heard first, and a favourable verdict would mean vindication for the former banker. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Not illegal according to the law.
And our editor-at-large, Craig Copetas, joins me now live from Paris. Craig, so, OK, get this, right? On the day that these jailed bankers are claiming that their human rights were violated, we have a revelation from the Icelandic parliament saying that the government was deceived by bankers involved in the sale of Agricultural Bank to a German bank in 2003. What irony is that?
Well, you know, as irony implies that there's some surprise, this is not surprising. Remember, Iceland privatized its banks in guess what year? 2003. So what you had was there's 3 big banks on the island, and they went out and they decided, well, we're going to increase our assets from about 100% of the country's GDP to some 1,000% of GDP. And then bang zoom, 5 years later, 2008, the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression smacks Iceland. And what does Iceland have to do? You know, first Western country in 25 years that had to go to the IMF to ask for a bailout. $2.1 billion.
Absolutely right. But after that crisis, Iceland let its banks go bust. I mean, 4 of the big 10 banks went bust. As we heard in Mobin's report, they jailed their bankers. Are these things that the US and the UK, in hindsight, should also have done?
You think? No one in the US or the UK went to jail over the financial crisis. Of course, the United States government bailed out Lehman Brothers for about $691 billion, if I remember. Hey, but Iceland got a deal. It only cost $83 billion they lost there. And now you hear these bankers, railing, oh, poor me. Oh, the judge who adjudicated the case, he got hit. By God, man, grow up. There are only 300,000 residents, inhabitants of that island. Everyone got ream steamed and dry cleaned.
Yeah.
I'm surprised not more of their bankers didn't go to jail.
Indeed. Craig, also, finally, does this signify, in your opinion, that that wave of anti-corporate sentiment that we had post-crisis, has that wave passed, and are we seeing the corporations fighting back?
Yeah, I think it goes down to human nature as, you know, you put money in a bank, you know, even if you're distrustful of the system, you bring with that deposit a modicum of trust in the people who you're giving the money to, or the politicians whom you elect. So this shouldn't surprise people, but who else are you going to trust? And I think this is just going to continue, and the hubris and belligerence of these bankers is very apparent. Going to the Human Rights Court of Justice in Europe for this? I mean, come on. It's patent silliness, and it's also dangerous.
Indeed. Craig Copetas in Paris, as ever. Thank you so much.